I'm joined by my great friend and also someone who was there, who came to the proceedings, so saw what went down. He's a man of colour.
Sugar. No one told me that.
He's a man of colour is the most important thing in the world. Father Calvin Robinson. Hi, Calv.
Hello, you're right.
No, not really. But I'm all right because I think that there's bigger things at play. Do you know what I mean? I'm not a heathen.
There are bigger things at play.
I don't think that, I think that this is all part of something. I just find it very, very painful going through it all the time. And I think that, as I was saying, we've sort of discussed, I think that judgment is just strange. What do you think?
Well, on the first point, this is a big battle, right? This is a battle between good and evil, and you're taking part in the battle. So it's not your battle, right? So you can't take all the weight of it on your shoulders. That's important. You can't have all that anxiety, all that stress. You've got to offload that up to him because this is his battle and you're one of his soldiers. Like, remember that for your own well-being. But in terms of your specific case, I mean, it's a nonsense, isn't it?
Why do you say that?
So the judge cannot define racism. We all know what racism means. There is a definition in the dictionary, in the Oxford English Dictionary. It's discrimination against someone based on their ethnicity, right? So essentially it's disliking people and treating them differently because of how they look.
An immutable characteristic.
Exactly.
So why would originally we applied for jury because I could foresee this problem.
Yeah.
I would go, how can a judge work all of this stuff out?
But she doesn't need to work it out. It's all been worked out for her over the centuries. We have an established English language. She just has to refer to it, but she won't because she's not bold enough. If it was going to be a judge, it needed to be a judge who's ambitious, who wanted to make a mark and say, this new definition of racism, this power dynamic between oppressive white people and black victims is not what racism means. It isn't what racism has always meant. We know what racism means. That's what we needed. A judge who would stand firm in the English language, for the English culture, for the English tradition, for everything that we know to be true. But you didn't get that, unfortunately. She didn't want to rock the boat.
We were all so surprised. Like, it was so weird.
This is what struck me, Laurence. Even your lawyer, nice enough chap, but was surprised. I'm like, this guy still has faith in the system, bless him.
Yeah, the thing that made me most sad yesterday in the morning, but I kind of rallied in the afternoon because I'm kind of used to getting beaten up, was that I'd held for 3 and a bit years, I'd held this one faith that the judicial system wasn't, captured in any way, and that it would ultimately deliver a fair and measured and reasonable response, even if that response was to turn around and say, yeah, you are a racist, or no, you're not, at least something. And then I go, oh, okay, well, in the eyes of the law, I'm a racist.
But she couldn't say that either. So she couldn't come down in your favour because she probably thinks you are a racist. But she couldn't come down against you because if she declared you a racist, that would declare every white person in this country a racist by default.
But I think she's done that as well. I think it means that everybody's a racist. As far as I can understand her logic, she says, if you engage in debates about racism, you're going to get called a racist. And I'm like, okay, well then what's racism?
Right.
You've got to define it. Otherwise you get into this thing of the circular definition, which is very the Ibrahim Kendi approach to racism, which is he talks about racism all the time, but he never tells you what it is.
Yeah.
And that seems to me to be very intellectually unrigorous.
Yeah, it's dishonest.
And I don't want to. Part of me is like that we can appeal this, and someone is going to see sense at some point, which they must surely have to. We've appealed it before. We appealed the Thorpe decision, and hers got thrown out. So
because these words are important. Racist is a serious word. Like it's a serious accusation that can cause serious harm, and that's the other part that really I found baffling, that you have, you lost your agent, you lost your job, you lost a lot of money, you've suffered serious harm by any definition of the word. Yeah, according to the judge, you hadn't. And the opposition, the opponents had somehow.
Which was so weird because throughout the trial we had to ask, I think we had to go back to court twice to get them to do a proper disclosure. So the minute someone is not disclosing documents, like I just gave my computers and my phones and everything to a company, they took every document off and we provided a full, open, honest disclosure because I'd got nothing to hide, so I didn't mind doing that. We had to drag their disclosure out of them. And actually there are parts of it there are parts of their immediate disclosure after it of them kind of laughing.
Well, they're not good people.
And
They're not honest
giggling.
people. Like, I saw.
How can, if that's given in evidence, she doesn't refer to it in judgment at all. It was there, plain to see in evidence that they were finding it funny.
Yeah.
Nicola Thorpe was definitely finding it funny. What's his face? The drag queen bloke, Colin Seymour. His boyfriend, it was found out in the trial, is my top troll. He's been trolling me for
They're just awful
years.
people, but they know the system is on their side. I saw that drag queen on with Kay Burley yesterday.
Yeah.
And they lie. They're disingenuous about everything. They say, oh, he's calling me a paedophile because I'm homosexual. It's an old trope. And everyone knows that, first of all, you called Nicola Thorpe a paedophile too.
And I had no idea who he was.
Right.
I thought he was a girl.
But as Julie Hartley-Brewer said, everyone knows what you were doing. You were saying you cannot just call people a racist without backing it up. It's just like me calling you a paedophile without backing it up. You use a horrible term for a purpose. For a reason, but it wasn't because you genuinely believed he was a paedophile, which is what you said in your court case. I heard you stand up straight away and said, I do not believe these people are paedophiles. I was making a point. Everyone knew that, but they're disingenuous and say, oh, it's because I'm a homosexual, it's because I dress up as a woman, this and that and the other. No, they're your own issues. They're your own sins to deal with. They're not what Laurence was calling to front.
And what do you think is, I could be wrong. I mean, I'm obviously still trending on the beautiful social media app because they do love glorifying when I get screwed. But I sense this time round that people are just going, nah, I don't, the media can carry on reporting what the media report relentlessly, this sort of one single narrative. Interestingly, they've gone after Lizzie relentlessly. They've tried to really say, belittle and demean her. Wild theories like that climate change may be being used to do something else. Like, that's not a wild theory.
Her,
The
Even if
WEF,
it was, doesn't matter.
and also the WEF have told us that's what they're doing. And crazy theories like the coronavirus jab may or may not cause you some harm. So they belittled her as well.
Lizzie can believe whatever the heck she wants. It doesn't really matter. This case was about whether you're a racist or not, and whether it's right for you to call them a paedophile or not.
Yeah.
Why are they dragging her into it?
Because their desire, and I'm also interested in this, their desire to destroy me, and I'm not trying to be vain about this, but I feel like there's quite a lot of institutions in this country who aren't a big fan of what I think and how I speak, and I find that quite heavy. And I'm interested as to why. So I know why they would, like you say, why they would go after me and say the nastiest things they possibly could about me. But I don't understand. Is it just to get anyone who's associated with you to be that way as well?
Sure, to discredit you, because it's not actually about you, it's about the truth. They're fighting against the truth.
Why are they fighting against the truth?
They have their own reality, don't they?
Yeah.
And a lot of it's projection. A lot of these people are racist. A lot of these people do see people of colour differently to the way they see themselves. We often see this patronising form of racism of you coloured folks stay down there and we'll look after you. You can't do this by yourselves and you can't have those opinions. You should have those opinions. They are the racists, and they're projecting it onto people like yourself. It's not actually about you. None of it is about you. You're a symptom of a much wider problem.
Okay, so what's the wider problem?
Well, the truth.
Right.
The truth versus people that hate the truth.
So okay, let's break that down a bit. Surely, what would be a reason why someone would hate the truth?
Because they are not in touch with the truth, and they want essentially, they want to be their own gods, right? They want their own perception of reality. They want to say, I know what's right and wrong. I know what's good and bad based on what I believe. Or, I live my life this way and I want it to be seen as good, whether it's good or not. Whereas someone who knows the truth to be objective, someone who knows Jesus Christ to be the truth, would say, actually, no, God says what's good and what's not good. But people don't want to live by someone else's rules. They want to live by their own rules. And that's what's making an idol of ourselves. That's making a God of ourselves. Like, I want to do all these horrible things, but I want to feel good about it at the same time. And so I'm going to say that these things are good. And also I'm going to project those things onto other people and say that you are bad. And by me calling you out, that makes me good. And that's what virtue signaling is, right?
Yeah. It's a refusal to engage with the truth because it's driven by a kind of personal individual narcissism that we
Absolutely.
are, that everything that goes on in our own lives is. But I hate to say it, and I'm pretty crap, but I'm empathetic to that view. So it's all about me. Like yesterday, I was just like, is it all about me?
Of course, by default, we are. We're prideful beings. And this is why we need God. This is why we need the faith to remind us that actually it's not all about us. And there's a bigger picture at play here. And we are pawns in a big battle that's been going on since the beginning of time.
And it just seemed weird, though, as well. The other thing that struck me just, again about Lizzie was the fact that she's not a white person. So usually you get absolute pass, but like you...
That's why they hate her. That's why they hate me.
Because she doesn't think like, oh, I'm a poor little black person who can't get anywhere in life. So you have to think like a white person tells a black person to think.
Of course, because again, they're the racist. But also, they don't want you having a black girlfriend or a mixed race girlfriend or a black friend, right? They hate the fact that Liz associates with you, and they hate the fact that I associate with you because it destroys their narrative, right? And then they'll say things like, oh, he uses them as cover for his racism. I'm like, okay, so... Right, but it doesn't make sense. The old trope of, well, I can't be a racist because I have a black friend is a trope for a reason, but it also makes sense. Why would a racist want a mixed race girlfriend and a mixed race good friend?
Because she's really clever, she's peaceful, and she's smart, and she balances out my absolute frantic.
She grounds you.
Yeah, and she's been there. That she's really. It's her temperament, which is, she's also extremely beautiful, but her temperament is what's so good about that.
But it doesn't make sense because you're not Oswald Mosley. Like you don't have some. I mean, you have a political party, but you don't really have any policies. And if you did, they're not racist, they're not fascist. You're not trying to. I don't know what this is, other than I was at your Christmas lunch with your father, your brother, his pregnant wife, your sons. Like, we had a lovely time. People don't know that. Right? People would never know that unless I just mentioned it just now. We go on an annual holiday together with your whole family. Like, this is not something a racist does. And if you were under some deep cover, that's a lot of work to go to cover up what? What are you covering up?
I know.
But people don't...
Also, that's one of my other points, which is like, I would just say it.
Right.
If I had an issue, like I do have slight issues, as I've said, with the fact that I'm like a bit worried about how Christian values intersect with Islamic values. I'm not a theological scholar, so I don't know enough to say it, but I do think, hang on, how does that work? You've got one set of laws, Britain has a secular set of laws, how's that going to interact? And we've seen that that's caused tensions. But that's not racist to have that view, and I'm very open to say it. But if I genuinely didn't like someone because I thought, I don't know, Chinese people were dreadful, I'd just say it.
This is the problem.
I'd have no problem.
You can love people for who they are, whereas they still see people in these brackets. So that's the LGBT people, that's the mixed race people, or the black people, etc. Like, you're not playing by their rules, and that shows them up. You're exposing them for the hypocrites that they are, and that's why they hate you and the people that associate with you.
What advice do you have for me as a friend? I've asked you that in public, because I know that there are things that I do that you just phone me up and say, I don't think that is right. I think you should, I think you got to rethink, and I listen because I'm trying to be open-minded. What advice would you give someone like me who's honestly, what has happened to my nervous system can't be good for you.
No.
It just can't be good for you. On the day of the trial, my hands are just like, what would you say I should do to modify perhaps the Counter-Strike approach that I take?
That's a good question. And I think my opinion has changed. So when I first met you, I think I was like, Laurence, you're too edgy. You need to dial it down a bit, But actually, I think you need to be on the front lines. You are an infantryman, and that by you being on the front lines, you enable me to be 5 minutes behind you, people to be 5 minutes behind me, and we need people to break down the door so that we can get through and say what needs to be said. And the people, the so-called conservatives in this country, the ones who sneer down their nose at you, and the ones who want to be seen by respectable, seen as part of the establishment, those kind of people need you. And again, that's another reason why they hate you, because they can't do what you do, and they don't respect it. But at the same time, my advice would be, you can't be on all the time.
Yeah.
You've got to shut down. And I mean, you've got to take Twitter off your phone for a while. You've got to go on holiday and just read books. So you've got to do that regularly. You can't be on the front lines all the time.
Yeah, you do need leave, don't you? It's soldiering. And I put it poorly to you earlier, whereas actually I should have flipped it around. But my analogy was, it is just like, I'm here to fight, so I fight.
Yeah.
And actually, maybe there's a better way of doing it. But I think what really the easier way of doing it is wait for someone to really overreach, and then go all at the idea and the mistake they're doing. But for some reason, I'm just like, I'm watching this happening, and it terrifies me because I was listening to James Lindsay, who people are also very down the road of saying is a complete lunatic. But to me, he makes more sense.
I get on with him. We disagree on a lot, but I get on with him.
Yeah, because I saw when you're in America, we need to get onto you in America. So you're talking to him, but he made this point about the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution, which was a lot of it began with this idea of Han chauvinism, that I'm not brilliant on China, but I imagine the Han are one of the peoples that make up China, possibly the majority group, and they were told that they had Han chauvinism and they need to rein it back in, which is basically the Chinese equivalent of white privilege, rein it back in. So I know what the agenda is, and I know that minority groups are being used as any minority group that can be tramped on like a stepping stone to get to utopia, which is a world where everyone is equal, which we kind of are all born equal, we're all born naked, and we all leave this planet.
We are or we're not. We're equal in the eyes of God in terms of dignity and worth, but every other way we're not equal. No. We have to accept that. We'll never have equality. We'll never have egalitarianism. And if that's the goal, then it's a false dream.
That's a good point, yeah, because obviously if you're born into abject poverty, you don't have the same
It's like I would say, it's temporary as well. Like I have certain privileges, like my height privilege, whereas when I'm on the tube, that's certainly not a privilege.
Or on a plane.
Right, it depends where you are and what you're doing. It changes all the time. We can't live our lives depending on what privileges we do or do not have.
And so it's interesting that you've noted, because you did. When we first met, you were like, you've got to take an edge off because you need to be taken seriously and try and work with reform and do this and, become a serious, thoughtful player and be careful in your words. And I'm like, yeah, cool, I can be serious and articulate. I'm very capable of doing it. But I kind of saw very quickly after Question Time and the racism tweets, which just were horrendous. These people would very happily come to your house, take you outside, line you up against the wall and shoot you. And then go next door. And if there was a Ukraine flag hanging in the window, they'd miss that house out. And they would go street to street. And if you didn't celebrate whichever stupid piece of global celebration you've got to make this week, you're against their movement and therefore you're an enemy and you need to be killed. So my approach to them is like, I know what you're up to. You're the enemy, and I'm going to out you and expose you every time. And what's happened to you is you've become more edgy.
Yes, because my opinion of you hasn't changed. My opinion of them has changed.
Right.
The respectable, the moderates, the ones who want to be a part of the establishment, they are the enemy, actually.
They're even worse, almost, than the enemy.
They are worse than the liberals because they are liberals and they don't realise it. They think they're conservatives. They think they're making a difference, but actually they're pulling people back who are trying to make a difference.
I woke up this morning and I thought, what is real in this world? So is justice real? Are the police there to really help people? Is Parliament trying to represent people? And then I'm starting to go to myself, I don't think it is really, because like every single government goes, we're going to bring down immigration. Immigration is a contentious issue. I think a moderate amount of controlled immigration is fine if it's useful and it's something that we need. But I don't think that we should be picking up boats that have been escorted by the French Navy out into the middle of the Channel. I just don't think we should be doing that. I think those boats should be sent back. And I think a lot of people would share that view. France is a safe country. But now that is, just to even say something like that is deemed racist.
In the establishment, most people believe it. I would go further and say we need a moratorium on immigration, no immigration at all for a number of years until we sort it out. We need to make sure everyone who entered this country illegally is deported. Anyone who entered the country and broke a law is deported. And then we need to look at our student visas. We need to stop these universities taking on, it's essentially a scam, taking on loads of cash for low entry criteria to let people come into the country. We need to just cut it all out.
And so you'd have a moratorium on immigration, and the reasoning behind the moratorium would be to go, look, we are in a process. Someone told me the other day, we've had more mass immigration into this country in the last 30 years than the previous 2000s. So this is the biggest thing that has ever happened to Great Britain and the United Kingdom. At the very least, we should be saying, what, shall we measure some of the effects that is having on society? And, because our friends on the other side love to talk about how, disadvantaged Black, Asian, ethnic minority groups were during COVID. And I'm like, well, Black, Asian, ethnic minority groups, sorry to generalize, tend to be more religious. Therefore, when you offer them and they believe in things like immune systems, and if it's their time, and they put their faith in God, that's what I would say would have lowered the uptake of the jabs.
But so-called conservatives will only speak on this issue in terms of resources. Our schools and our hospitals
but they're a mess. Our schools and hospitals,
which is a problem. But it's actually bigger than that. It's who are we as a country? Who are we as an English people? What is our culture? What do we believe? And if you want to be welcoming to other people, fine. But you have to have something to welcome them to. And we've had such a flood of immigration that people don't even know what it means to be English or British anymore. That's gone. It's diluted.
And then that means that the next arrival doesn't know either. So I've always thought that the mass immigration thing is a real problem, because you're basically putting people who are vulnerable into a situation which can't cope with it. It's not like when people refer to our NHS, it's, and I think it's 70% of the tax burden unsubsidized. So essentially the NHS is Great Britain, and Great Britain is this little thing on the side of the NHS. And that, it seems to me, the wrong way around. Now, that'd be great if this wonderful all-encompassing health service was the pride of the world, but it isn't. No. It's underperforming, it doesn't work, it's full of woke stuff. They spend tens of millions on diversity officers. And what is a diversity officer other than someone who is brought into an organisation to tell you what to think? It's like a commissar.
It is.
And we're allowing this stuff to happen. And what really concerns me is that as Europe shifts towards common sense, and we cannot just literally replace our population with another population, and parties across Europe have tending to lean now to what was traditionally the conservative side, certainly in terms of protecting culture. Hungary, various countries like that, and Italy. It's all been very successful. But in the UK, we're doing exactly the opposite. And it dawned on me the other day, the UK is the only country that's never had like a communist takeover or a fascist takeover or something like that. And as we're going in this direction, which is totally different to the rest of the world, and I thought, wow, we could end up with some really odd stuff in this country. Not that we already do have that with Jeremy Vine saying, do you think they deserve to be cancelled? It's like, fuck off, mate, we're in Great Britain. Sorry, Father.
No, I mean, you make a good point. Maybe it has to get worse, though, before it can get better. Because when we have immigrants who come over here from countries that have been communist, they are the ones who warn us against it. But we don't appreciate it anymore.
Yeah.
Even fascism, we don't have that living memory of World War II anymore. So people don't realize how bad it is. And so they just throw the word fascist around left, right, and centre, not realizing what they're saying, just as they do with the word racist.
And this has now happened to you, because you're the only person I know, actually, with the exception of Lizzie in the last few days, who gets even more abuse than I do. Now, we know why that is, because you refuse to be politically black. You are just racially mixed race or politically mixed. You refuse to think how black people are meant to think. Now, so I think you've got more committed. But what I've noticed is the number of people that I felt were with us walking down this road we seem to have lost a few. And certainly tell us, because you've just gone to America, and you were to go to Charleston to give a talk about critical theory. Am I correct? And to then sit on a panel. Tell us what happened, Cal.
I gave a talk on critical theory. I said I could get up here and speak about critical race theory, gender theory, and queer theory, but that would be very obvious, and I think it would be touching the surface. Everyone knows that these are issues. I'm not here to just throw red meat around. I want to get to the root cause, and I think that actually feminism is a major part of liberalism that we're all conceding too much ground on, even conservatives. And this is why you got fired, actually. Because people say to me all the time, Laurence crossed a line, and they can never tell me which line that is. And these aren't Christians even most of the time, but they know you crossed a line somewhere in their heart. They know you said something or did something that they felt was inappropriate. It's because you broke the feminist rule. of a man speaking out against a woman in a derogatory way.
Right.
But
it was you didn't like. I got a bit of a lecture from you the next day.
Right, but I didn't like it because as men we are the stronger half of the species. We're there to provide and protect. We're supposed to look after women, and so I thought it was wrong of you to bring her down. But also because she's so rubbish, and you could have destroyed her argument so easily because it was poor. But also it detracted from the argument because it made it about you, and that's not helpful for you or her. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Charleston.
But they hated you. Yeah. Because you went against their feminist movement, and
it felt like
both sides.
It felt like the biggest piece of confected outrage in history to me.
Oh yeah, sensationalism.
I look back on it now, and Angelos, bless him, from GB News, crawling around the TV shows, going, "It's appalling! Can't believe what he said." And it's like, Angelos.
Oh, I know.
Angelos, mate.
Let's not go there with his views on women.
Few things we know about you, Angelos, my love. Anyway.
In America, what I said was essentially, a woman cannot become a priest any more than a man can become a mother. And in society and in the church, what we're doing is we're thinking that men and women are interchangeable, and we're not.
Yeah.
Men are not better than women. Women are not better than men. We are different. We're made differently. And
it's a very uncontroversial view, that.
But it used to be. For 2,000 years it was.
Yeah.
And now the church has taken on board societal values and said, well, actually, why can't a woman do this? Why can't a man...
But tell me why a woman can't be a priest.
Well, for many reasons. First of all,
give me a reason that if you were in an elevator with the Pope...
Right, I'll give you my 30-second pitch.
Yeah.
God does not make mistakes. God came to earth as a man, fully man, yet fully God, Jesus Christ, and he told us to refer to God as Father, first and foremost. And then Jesus Christ chose 12 male apostles, his first bishops, if you like, as men for a reason. And it's not because he didn't want to be controversial and choose women. He chose women for other things. You know, he sat with tax collectors and prostitutes. He broke down social norms when he wanted to, but he chose 12 men for a reason. We might never know what that reason is, but we have to adhere to the way that he did things.
Could it be cultural to that time?
But that's what I'm saying, because it was cultural for that time not to eat without washing your hands or not to sit with prostitutes, but he did break cultural norms if he wanted to.
Yeah, okay, got you.
But I think the reasons are that when the priest is at the altar, we have the 6 candles on either side. The priest acts as the seventh candle from Revelations, which is Jesus Christ. The priest acts in the person of Christ to bring a part of heaven to the communion, to the congregation, and a part of the congregation to heaven. And a woman can't do that for several reasons. But it's about what the Bible says. So St. Paul says, "Follow me as I followed Christ." And he says, a woman is not to speak in church. And to hear that as a modern day man, but or a woman, we're all like, whoa, wait a minute, because we've been told by feminism that everyone can do everything.
But even I'm a bit like,
this is what I mean. We've conceded ground to this.
Yeah, I suppose. But why should a woman not speak in church? I mean, not that anyone other than the priest speaks in church.
Well,
really.
The Bible is the ultimate authority. So if the Bible says a woman cannot speak in church, then we should follow it. But I personally think the reason would be because men tend to be more pragmatic and logic-based. So with our theology, we're like, no, this is what it says, this is what we do. Whereas women are more emotionally intelligent and more maternal. They want everyone to feel welcomed, included, and therefore they're willing to bend the rules and be more fluid with theology in order to make everyone feel happy. That they're not offended, they're not harmed, and make everyone feel loved, but in a very superficial form of love. Whereas God teaches us that we have to be, by his order, to be good. Or a woman would say, well, what's the harm of, so what if he's in a same-sex relationship? You know, he loves him and he loves him, and love is love, and that dilutes the faith.
I know, but I'm diluting the faith.
Well, you're a bit of a liberal, Laurence.
Of course. Because, you know, I think that, I totally agree with you on 100% on the fact that men and women are equal but different. I completely agree with. I think feminism in its current iteration is really bad, but I do think women should have the vote, for example, and things like that. So I think that the beginnings of feminism were very noble. I just think the whole kind of, it's not about being equal to men, it's about beating them now, is not good. And actually, just on a purely personal, not speaking for anyone else level, I find masculine acting women really off-putting.
Right. Feminism made women into men.
Humorless and really not very attractive. I don't find them. I like really strong women, which actually, weirdly, I did say in that interview with Dan, but no one quoted that bit. I said, we need amazing strong women before I went down the rabbit hole of how angry I was with what she said. So anyway, you stand up, you do the lecture on feminism.
Yeah,
I'm sure that would have gone down really well.
I read from the Bible. I read the part where it says that a wife is to be obedient to her husband. But I finish it where most people don't finish it and say, but a husband is to serve his wife. And this is the complementarian relationship between man and woman, between husband and wife. Anyway, a few people walk out, as I'm reading from the Bible, in a Christian conference, which tells you perhaps they're not as Christian as they think they are. And I get told that I'm disinvited from the panel and the Q&A on the next day, because some people were upset by what I had to say, but everything I had to say was orthodox. Everything I had to say was scriptural.
From the Bible.
From the authority that we all say we adhere to. So the problem wasn't mine. The problem was in the minority of liberals who were so triggered and offended by what I had to say.
So to make an analogy that you'll hate, you are sticking truthfully to the faith in the same way as, well, not in the same, with the same determined vigor and scriptural scrutiny, for want of a better word, as a very devout Muslim would.
Yeah.
And one of the things I always admire about Islam is they don't take any shit from anybody. They just go, this is the religion, this is what happens, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. That's it, game over. Yeah. And they take themselves seriously.
Yeah.
You know, and I wonder whether it's time for Christians to take themselves a bit more seriously, like you do, because, like you say, if you allow things to slip,
right? But
I mean, I never thought. I found the same-sex marriage thing a really strange idea, because it does say marriage is between a man and a woman, and basically the whole point of marriage really is to have children and have a good system to raise children. Yeah. And obviously it's tragic when these things don't work out, but the homosexual community I hate using the word community, homosexual people did have in law the equal rights as marriage, but needed marriage. So that would seem to me to be a direct attack on the Christian values of the country.
Yeah,
but it was lauded and applauded by David Cameron himself.
Of course, yeah, because the Conservatives aren't conservative. But it was
why are the Conservatives not conservative? Are they frightened?
No, because they're liberals, and they don't realise it, most of them. But that in particular was an attack on marriage, on the sacrament of holy matrimony, on God's divine order itself. So I don't think it was about these individuals who wanted it. I think it was actually about the enemy. How can I attack God? How can I attack God's order? Well, by telling the people that God's order is wrong, and they know a better way than God. And that's what it is. It's back to the Garden of Eden. Did God really say? That's what it all comes down to. Yeah. The snake whispering in our ears, persuading us that we know better than God.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with women priests. It's the same thing with same-sex marriage. Same thing with anything we take where we water down the faith to take on worldly values because we assume that we know better now than what God knew.
It does. It always strikes me as strange, this idea of sin, in the same way as I was saying yesterday that it's funny that you can shorten Australian to Aussie, but you can't shorten Pakistani to Paki. I'm like, why? That what we've got in the situation of sin is there are millions of sins. We sin all the time. I mean, there are 7 deadly sins, but we're sinning relentlessly.
Yeah, anything that separates us from God.
But the gay thing became a political sin. Do you know what I mean? It was, and I suppose there must have been some. I've got friends who I love who are gay, and I deeply love them. So it doesn't really come into my head whether they're sinning or in a same-sex relationship or if that's wrong in any way. I don't think
it became a political sin. I think it became a sin that people wanted to affirm.
Right.
And it's the same. We're seeing the same with gluttony, right?
Yeah,
So we all fall into sin every day. I fall into gluttony quite a bit. I have to repent of it, right?
I've seen you at Sunday lunch, mate. Yeah.
Exactly. I'll have another piece of beef. Yeah, please. However, we're seeing that become affirmed now in this body positivity, like the idea that to be obese is a good thing, and it's a healthy lifestyle, and it's a choice that people make, or it's even not a choice. People are born that way, and all nonsense.
But it's selective.
We know that human beings are supposed to be thin, are supposed to be athletic, are supposed to be healthy, and to be obese is not, because it's rooted in sin. But people want to live in their sins. They don't want to be told that to sin is bad. They don't want to be told that they have to repent of their sins and turn away from their sins and turn towards Christ and God's order. They want to live where they are. We all do, because we're prideful human beings. We're fallen.
Well, it's hard enough, even if you want to turn away. Right. If you're trying to not be an evil, sinful bastard with every energy you've got, and you still are being an evil, sinful bastard. But it seems to me...
It's not necessarily evil. It's
selective, though, isn't it? This idea of like, okay, well, it's really great, we're going to applaud fat people.
But it's not loving.
We're not going to... Are they applauding crackheads?
Exactly, but it will get to that, because weed's now legal pretty much most of the Western world. What's to say that crack won't be next? Because these people, it's all they have in their life. It makes them happy. Whatever makes people happy. No, if you love people, you don't want them to sin. You want them to live eternal life in God, right? Or you want them to, at the very least, if you're secular, live healthy lives. So you want them to avoid things that are not good. So if you love people, you don't want them to sin. So these people, the liberals, do not love people. That's what it comes down to.
They don't. Expand out on that. Why don't they love people?
Well, because people who push body positivity, they don't love people. If you want someone to be okay with being obese and having a heart attack at 30, you don't love them.
Might be other reasons for the heart attack at 30, old bean. But if you know what I mean.
I don't know what you mean.
Well, there are other reasons why people are having sudden heart attacks.
Oh, I see. Yes,
which is actually a crime against humanity, as our dear friend Bridget said. Okay, so what do we do? Like, what do we do moving forward? What are we going to...
We teach about sin and we teach about love.
But what if that turns people off? So literally the minute...
So what?
People always say to me, you're really, really hard on yourself. And I'm like, well, I'm still a mega sinner. Like, I do wrong stuff all the time. So...
But as long as you're not embracing those wrong things, because if you're embracing them, that's harmful for your soul. So if we love people, we want them to be better people. All of us want to be better people. So in order to help ourselves, we have to know what sin is first and foremost, and we have to know what love is. And we have to know that God loves us and he doesn't want us to sin and wants us to head towards him. And all of that needs to be taught explicitly.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with this whole situation. We fudge anything and it becomes okay. So we don't know what racism means anymore. We don't know whether you're a racist or not, because the judge won't declare either way.
Yeah.
And all of that undermines genuine racism, the sin of racism that does happen. You know, as a child, right, maybe 8 years old, I remember fireworks being lit through my letterbox. So I wasn't old enough to have upset anyone or had any political opinions or anything like that. I just happened to be brown. Me and my sister happened to be brown. And so people threw bricks at us, they spat at us, they climbed over our back garden to steal washing off my mother's line, because my mother was audacious enough to have children with a black man. Right? That's racism. That's genuine racism. It's hurtful, it's harmful in the true sense of those words, and it's discriminatory. Direct. And those people should be punished for it, because that's a sin, it's evil, it's wicked, and we can all agree that that's not good. When we say, actually, we don't know what racism means, you could be a racist because people have perceived you to be racist, they believe you to be racist, so... But in what way have you been racist? What have you done or said that's racist? When people say that, they dilute the word, so it means nothing. So I can call anyone a racist now with no consequence whatsoever. So great for them. But for the people who are suffering from racism, or the people who are perpetrating racism, there are no consequences either way.
Which is a really, really, really bad outcome from this trial. I think that's one of the worst outcomes. And often, one of the things I've noticed is that people who are trying to do good, be very, very wary of them. People who think that they're doing you a favour, I've learned to be the most wary of. So, you know, when I'm sure the judge is trying to just be equanimity, show some equanimity somehow to try and avoid making a bold statement about anything. But actually, I think she makes the problem worse. Yeah. By trying to avoid making a problem at all, I think she's made it worse. Yeah. So it seems like you don't have to define the meaning of the word that someone has defamed you by. You can skip that on serious harm. So now it is essentially, you can be punched repeatedly in the face and do nothing. in response to it. And that is going to be bad, because if people are told that they're powerless to stand up for something they believe in, so if they object to, I don't know, someone, I personally find the whole idea of morning prayer being held in churches I don't like it. It's a different religion. It bothers me.
What do you mean morning prayer?
Not the call to prayer.
Muslim call to prayer.
Muslim prayer is I think your own religion, stick in your own religious buildings. That's what I think.
Well, it's conquering, isn't it? That's what it is.
Well, I mean, I don't know what I think it's such a difficult solution to get to the bottom of, and by immediately calling someone a racist for even trying to have the conversation, you do let in bad ideas to the conversation. So everyone knows that it's really dodgy for a man dressed as a woman to stand in front of a load of kids simulating sex acts. Everyone knows that, but the dread fear of voicing a concern about it, because we've stamped on free speech and people are terrified of being called phobic in any way whatsoever. We've got these things where it's now societally acceptable for men, often deviant men, to twerk in front of kids and perform sex acts. And I'm like, that's the sign of society that is so decadent, affluent and leisured that it's coming to an end. And it feels almost like the pace of all of this, and these bad decisions that are being made generally by society. It feels like, that Douglas Murray analogy of the train came off the tracks. It feels like it's now back on the tracks, and it is going to a destination that no one is going to like very much. That's what I sense, because if you shut people up and you tell the silent majority of this country, who, as you've seen and you get it all the time as well, people stop us and go, cheers, lads. Thanks for saying something, because it's so frustrating in my job. I can't say any of this stuff. So hearing you saying it makes me feel so much better.
Because good men have been silent for too long, and the bad men have been vocal for so long. And then now the bad men are saying what is good. It's good for a man to dress up as a woman. No, first of all, that's not good in the first place. The moment we concede ground there, we let everything else that comes after it go. Like for a bloke to be scantily clad, gyrating in front of a child, we know to be evil. But they only got there by us saying it's okay for that bloke to dress as a woman in the first place. It makes him happy. It's who he is, how he did. No, just say no to what we know to be wrong.
Yeah, that is going to be that's going to be what happens. And my worry about that is the vehicle for how that is done. So, whether some, as Peterson has said, whether just some bright shining light comes out of nowhere and starts. I'm just worried. I think what I'm trying to cat-handedly get to is the pendulum has swung so far in one direction that when it swings back, I can see it being just as bad, because the snakes on our side are just as dreadful as the snakes on their side, because humanity as a whole is pretty fallen. So, I look at the people who, I'm still so upset about the way GB News dealt with you, and I know that yours is ongoing, but it's just, those are meant to be the people that would support you. And that's what I mean by this going down this road, and we seem to be losing a lot of people on the way. And I think you described it to me the other day at lunch. So you said, I think you said, I mean it, or something like that. It's because you're actually, you actually do care. Some of these people who are pretending to fight this spiritual battle are only doing it because it's popular. Yeah. And it looks good for them. Do you think that's correct?
Yeah. We have to strive for the truth. Right? Objectively striving for the truth. But some people strive for other things, like whether that's their career, their ambitions, goals, whatever. They want to be on TV, or they want to be a politician, or whatever. If they're not doing it for the truth, then they're doing it for themselves, and they might align with us so far, but the moment it's no longer in their interests, they will fall away. And we've seen this personally many times over the last few years. It's heartbreaking when it's people you know and love, but this will continue to happen unless people are putting the truth first. And from my perspective, that truth is Jesus Christ, and so people should be putting him first, but they're not, because again, we're all fallen and we all make mistakes and we all have different objectives in life. But
so in a world where Christianity,
we're selfish,
and the followers of Christianity in this country and church attendance and everything like that is dwindling massively, is there a way to speak to people who are haven't even thought about the possibility of of anything beyond this life. Many of them, as we've already worked out, not interested even in the concept of the meaning in their lives. They just want their needs satisfied. Is there a way of speaking to people who are not Christians with the values that Christianity espouses and reclaiming some of that cultural confidence? Or can it only be done via the church?
No, it doesn't have to be done via the church, but we have to just be
helpful if we had a decent church.
It would be good if we had a great church. It's established, it's in every part of our culture, our lives. It would be great if they were speaking up, but they're not, unfortunately. So we have to, and we just have to be open and honest with the truth. And the reason my show was so successful on GB News is because I tried to at least put Christian values first and foremost and spoke the truth, and people were like, whoa, I remember that.
Yeah.
We used to hear that all the time. That used to be what we accepted to be the truth until 5 minutes ago when we were told that everything we know to be true is upside down. And people respond because they crave the truth.
It's comforting. I find especially in times of real pain and agony. And I really can't, and it's the only time I really understand it is when you're absolutely at the end of your rope. There is nothing to do but pray. You should probably pray more often. But if you do, sit down and just go, take me through this. There's a great effect on anybody's heart. And I think, the message, I don't know how anyone can be against the message of love thy neighbour as thyself. I just don't see how anyone can be against that message. I suppose we have to, the world needs more, as you said, some more role models of what a man is. And yes, I understand that men and women, it is kind of a spectrum in personality. You get some very kind of tomboyish girls and you get some very effete men, and that's fine. But it doesn't mean that, if you take the typical median average of both, you find women are more, as you say, possess more agreeable traits, and men are more kind of, pragmatic over certain issues. And there will be bits where that crosses over, but without defining those.
That's important, because in nature, in science, everything is generalized, right? So there will always be exceptions that prove the rule, but people use the exception as the rule, and that's the mistake.
Yeah, which is why I think we've got I was looking at the new trans guidance thing for schools.
Oh, goodness.
And it's all these really brightly coloured flags, except for straight, which is just white. So if I was a kid, I'd just be sitting there going...
It's so depressing, isn't it?
I've gone for pan. Should I go for pan or A? I'll go for asexual.
Do you want to be a boring, normal person?
Yeah. Do you want to be a boring, normal person, or do you want to start some puberty blockers and then chop off your genitals in a few years and then regret it for the rest of your life because you're infertile? Oh, man.
We used to acknowledge that a minority of people had same-sex attraction. And now in schools, it's becoming a majority of pupils have some kind of
queerness to
sexual deviancy. And it's not natural, it's not true.
Is Q queer or questioning?
I don't even care.
You don't care about the alphabet flag?
It's ridiculous.
Okay, I've got this thought. You saw that London Bridge has got its inclusivity tower.
Oh.
Come on, man. Don't. By the way, next time we're doing this over cigars. For sure. So you've seen the inclusivity tower.
Yeah.
I've got a feeling that weird migraine rainbow flag, that is the flag of the new world. That will be the global religion very, very soon, with pockets of people worshipping to their own religions privately, and that Islam may feel that it's getting a helping hand from there, because we're a poor oppressed minority. But once the global woke religion settles in,
it's not woke; it's Satanism. So it's an affront to God.
Yeah,
they took the sign of God's covenant, the rainbow, and excuse my French, but bastardized it and took one of the colours off, so it's no longer the 7-coloured rainbow. It's now a manipulated version of the rainbow, and they twisted it to the ends of. It's now about sexual deviancy. It's about pride, quite literally, big P, one of the 7 deadly sins. It's an attack on God. It's the enemy at work, where people are taking on board and thinking it's compassionate, it's empathetic, and it's good. But it's not good.
It's not compassionate or empathetic either, because all you have to do is read your Twitter feed responses. my way of, it's a guilty pleasure, my way of not reading my own Twitter abuse is to read yours. Because I just go, however bad mine is, Calvin's will just be even worse. And I just want to say I admire you hugely for maintaining a level head and being a great person to come to when I'm suffering, because you're always there for me.
Thanks. I try. I don't always maintain a level head, but I try. But the thing is,
I've only seen you pissed off a few times, and when you're pissed off, it's not bombastic.
No. But if we keep proclaiming our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ as the truth, objectively the truth, it will offend demons. It will offend the enemy, and people will screech and scream, and there will be gnashing of teeth. This is all scriptural, but it doesn't mean we should stop doing it.
No, and I'm going to have to go away again and think about where, because I'm very clear on where the thin end of the wedge is when it comes to speech, but I haven't dived as deep as I should probably to find out where the thin end of the wedge is on acceptance and tolerance. Yeah. Because I've just kind of sucked up the party line, which is you're tolerant of everything except intolerance.
But even that thing about free speech has been interesting this week, hasn't it? Because even people on our side make an absolute idol of free speech. We should be able to say whatever we like. No, we shouldn't be able to say whatever. The point of free speech is so that we're free to proclaim the truth. That's it.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean we can call people racist. Doesn't mean we call people pedophiles.
Well, I would disagree with you, actually. I'd say the point of free speech is to... the whole concept of free speech, it comes out of the facts of those that you most disagree with. So it's allowing them to say the thing that you least want to hear. That's why.
To what end?
To the end that some bad ideas don't take hold. So, for example,
what's a bad idea?
Well, like transgendering children is a really bad idea.
But why?
Because children cannot make irreversible life.
But who's to say that's a bad idea?
Decisions.
I'm pushing for a reason, because eventually we're going to get to what is the truth.
Yeah, because
free speech is to protect the truth.
Yeah. Okay. So. Well. Yeah.
Because we know what's good and what's not good because of the scriptures.
Don't get into a spiritual argument. Spiritual argument with a guy who's been fucking ordained. That's why I'm so sorry for forgiving. Right.
But we can't make an idol of free speech any more than they make an idol of everything else. We've got to acknowledge that there are boundaries, and actually
there are boundaries.
Freedom comes from boundaries, as we know. I would say from a Christian perspective, freedom is obedience to God, but the liberals will say actually freedom is independent liberty. The freedom to do whatever you want and say whatever you want, and that's not true. That's slavery to sin.
Oh well, we're going to have a bit. I know how to be well prepared for our evening tomorrow night, then, don't I? Oh my God, who's going to wipe the floor with me? Calv, thank you.
Not at all.
For coming in. Cool. Brilliant, you're a ledge. Love you, brother.